Welcome. This is the Russell Hantz Show. This is Russell. I have good news. I've started a podcast. Can you believe that? Well, to tell you the truth, it's a little weird talking to myself, but I guess I can figure it out. What I want to do is I want to talk about how it all started. We're going to talk about a lot of things dealing with the current events, mostly reality TV, of course. Today, I want to talk about how it all started. When I got the phone call, how I made my tape. Maybe that can help some of you that's trying to get on reality TV. And then, we can go from there. This is probably going to be a little unconventional at first because it is a little weird right now, talking to myself into a computer, even though you would think for Hantz, talking to himself isn't so weird, but it is. I just opened my company. It was called Hantz Tankering. It was an oil company in Houston, based in Houston. And my buddy just played Survivor. His name is Kenward Bernice. You may know him as Boo. He did pretty well. He went all the way to the final 5. I remember tuning in here and there, watching him, but I was so busy with my company, I wasn't that concerned. When he came back, he started talking to me about getting on the show. I was just started my company. I was way too busy taking care of everything I had to take care of with that, so I wasn't really sure. And he was like, man, let's just make a video, then we'll just send it. Let's just get drunk, make a video, and I'll send it to the people I know. Unfortunately, Survivor, the time period wasn't right for me to play Survivor. So he was like, let's just do a tape and we'll send it in. They got a new show that Mark Burnett did called Pirate Masters. So, I was like, okay, let's do that. We actually did a tape for Pirate Masters. It was just terrible. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I was like, what I was supposed to do? He's like, just be yourself. And it's just weird. It was weird for me. And I was worried about cameras in my face all the time because it was just weird for me to talk into a camera. It's not natural. So we did the tape, and in the tape, he's like, you need to be more aggressive. You need to be more aggressive. The only thing I can think of while we were doing the tape, I said, I don't care if my mama's there, I'm stabbing her in the back, which is, of course, a lie. But it's, it was good for the tape. And I did a few other silly things. I wish I still had that tape. I don't know where it is. I'm sure CBS has it. It's pretty funny. Now, if you're trying to get on any show, I don't care what they tell you or what they say about that they don't want this, but this is what they want. You have to have an extreme personality. They look for personalities. You got to realize if you're doing an interview, that it's not an interview. That's the first thing you got to realize. If somebody's talking to you and you got a shot to be on Big Brother, Survivor, NTV, anything, and you have to, you do not treat that like an interview. You have to go in and whatever your personality is, you times that times 10. You be that person, but you still be the person who you are. You can still be that person, but you amp it up a little bit. Look at what they have. I mean, when they have a pretty girl, she's usually like a Miss this or Miss that, Miss Alabama or Miss Utah, or, it's always to the extreme. If they have like a cowboy, they like it when he's like, flaming cowboy. He's got the cowboy hat. He has the accent. When it's a nerd, they want it real nerdish. I mean, for goodness sakes, look at Cochran. But that's what they do. I do the tape. We send it in, and we don't hear from them. Nobody hears from them. So I'm like, what's up, Boo? Nothing, man. I ain't heard nothing. We don't know what's going on. I'm like, forget it. Did all that for nothing, a waste of time. So I'll go along my business. Now, this happened maybe a year or so later. Year and a half or so. And then Boo calls me one day. Are you sitting down? Yeah. He's like, well, stand up. I'm like, what do you want, boo? He's like, I just got a call from Erica Shea. Now, Erica Shea was one of the casting directors for Survivor. And I didn't directly apply for Survivor. She just happened to be a casting director at that time for Pirate Master 2. She's like, she wants your phone number. She wants to talk to you. I'm like, okay, all right. Well, tell her, give her my phone number. Let me talk to her. He's like, I think you're already going to L.A. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? For Survivor? I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't know the process. I didn't know that, you can apply for Big Brother and all of a sudden you end up on Survivor. Or you can apply for Survivor or end up on Pirate Masters. But that show got canceled, by the way. Good thing I didn't end up on that show. She calls me while I'm in the tub. And then I answer the phone, and she's like, hey, what are you doing? And they act like they're your best friends all the time. Remember that. If you ever get called from one of the casting directors, and I'm sure a few of them are going to be listening to this, they call, and it's their job. They act like they're your buddy. And they act like that until the day you get voted off, and it's all over. Then they don't know you anymore. But that's another podcast for another time. So she's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing fine. And then she's like, what's that noise? I'm like, I'm in the tub. You're in the tub right now. Yes. I can't believe you're talking to me when you're in the tub. And she actually liked that I didn't care that who I was talking to, and I really didn't. I didn't know she wanted me to treat her like some big shot, like my life was on the line to get on the show and that kind of bullshit. And that's just not me. She's like, we want you to come to L.A. I'm pretty shocked because everything started happening so fast. Once she made that phone call, I was on a plane to L.A. 5 days later. So, I head to L.A. and I'm sitting in the hotel room. And I didn't know that process neither. You sit there for days and days. Like, I think we sat there for 5 days, and you do maybe 2 interviews a day because they have hundreds of people that they're interviewing. So I'm sitting there, and the first thing you do when you get to L.A. is you talk to the casting director, which in this case, her name is Lynn Spielman. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but I know it now. When you talk to Lynn, what she's doing is she's making a decision whether you go home right then or you stay. They literally fly people in sometimes. They don't like it. They think they're fake. They think, they're trying to get one over on them. And they'll turn them around and send them right back. That's why you do have to be yourself. Be yourself, just magnified by 10 or 20. So she comes in the room and she starts talking to me, and, I'm just myself, and I know that I needed to be somewhat aggressive, so I was in a certain of the interviews. Well, there was this one interview in particular that I did with Jeff, Mark Burnett, a few other main producers. When I did the interview, man, I thought I blew it. I thought I blew it so bad that I called Boo when I got back to the room, and I'm like, man, that's it. I'm done. I blew it. He's like, what are you talking about? I just blew it. I can't do it. It was so stressful. I didn't need all that stress in my life at that point. I already had enough with my new company. He's like, man, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. What did you do? What did you do? And he's trying to comfort me, and then all of a sudden, somebody knocks on the door. It was Erica. And she's like, okay, Russell, you're doing great, but you need to be more funny. And I'm like, what do you mean? You need to be more funny. That even freaked me out more. Because it goes from me doing great, I think I'm kicking ass, to I do this one interview that I think I flunked in. And now she's knocking on the door, what makes me think that I was correct, that I'm going downhill now, that I need to be more funny. So somebody obviously told her that. So I'm like, man, how do I supposed to be funny? She's like, I don't know. Just be funny. You got to talk about your family. Talk about your kids. I'm like, man, I'm about ready to walk out because I don't know what to do now. So I'll call Boo back. Boo, they want me to be more funny. I'm too aggressive. They said it's a family show, CBS. I got to be funny. So he's like, okay, let's think of something because I've been best friends with Boo since junior high. In high school, and then we went to college together, and we stayed in the same dorm, like the whole 9 yards. So he's like, let's think of something that we did in college, and then you can talk about that, because trust me, I did a lot of funny shit in college. So we started talking about, what I can talk about, and this experience I had on the airline with this stinky passenger that was about 450 pounds, sitting next to me, squeezing me in there, and didn't have deodorant on. That kind of, smelled like fish and chips, that kind of thing. So we started talking something like that. But to me, that's just what happened. It's really not. I'm not a comedian. I'm thinking all night long that I have to come up with something. And the last meeting is with the CBS, the whole crew. They put you in a chair, and they got about all surrounding you in front of you. There's about 100 people. And they try to intimidate you because you're in your lonely little chair by yourself. So they finally called me up. And I remember seeing Shambo there. Ben Browning was there. Those are the two I remember that was in my group. So they bring me in. And, man, I have a feeling I'm about to blow it. I don't know. My mind is racing. What do I say? You try to script things in your head to say things, and that's just not the right way to do it. Because if you fail, then you fail, dramatically. So you try to figure it out, and how you're going to say it and do this and do that. It's just torture. And we go in there. And all of a sudden, hey man, I just right off the bat, I'm like, look. And I point to Erica, and I'm like, she says that I need to be more funny. Like everybody's in there. And I said, if you want a fucking comedian, then get that. Because I'm just going to be who I am. And then they all started laughing, like I just said something funny. And then it was a extremely positive interview from then on out. And when I walked out of that one, I knew I made the show. I called Boo back, and I was like, I just made the show. About 2 weeks later, they called me up and said, congratulations, you're on Survivor. Your whole life's about to change. Well, I didn't know it was going to change like it did, but it sure did. Changed a whole lot in my life. We went out there to Ponderosa. I wasn't a fan of the show. Not that I didn't like the show. I just never watched it. I was always too busy. When you get on this type of show, you're supposed to be fans. I know they tell you, and most of the time, that's what they look for. They try to look for people that know the show. They're going more and more to that because of the failures that they have with people that don't know the show. They send me home with a ton of tapes, CDs, to watch over and over. And they sent me with Micronesia, with Parvati. They sent with All Stars, the one with Boston Rob in. And then previously, while I'm getting ready, I knew I had a shot at it. And so they had Coach's season that was on. Then I watched Gabon, which I liked Gabon. Then I started thinking of things that I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, how come they're not looking for an idol? Like, what are y'all doing? Yeah, they have to have a clue. Why you need the clue? It's like, go look, just look. And I'm hollering at the TV like most people do when they watch reality TV. So I remember even telling my wife at the time, she's my ex-wife now. No apologies necessary. But anyway, I remember telling her, if I play that game, I'm going to look for that idol without clues. You don't need a clue. You got a specific area you can look in. You got 24 hours a day You know, nobody's going to expect you doing it. If you disappear, so what? Nobody knows. I can remember Parvati saying one time on Heroes and Villains, Russell's always gone, walking around somewhere. That's because I was always looking for idols. And and I found them pretty fast my first time, my first season, season 19 Samoa, because they didn't hide them too hard because they didn't figure somebody would look. And, that's when the whole thing changed. That's when everything changed about that game. Oh, what? Yeah, that's when game changed happened, which is fairly funny because they happen to be doing a season right now called Game Changers, and that's a whole nother podcast. We'll go into that little later on another show. Ponderosa. So we go to Ponderosa, and again, we sit there for 5 days to do nothing. And, that's really miserable because you have all these people around, bunch of talents, that you don't know, but everybody there is pretty quick personalities and very smart, talented people. And you can't talk to anybody till the game starts. I can remember watching Monica. Monica, I've always thought she was beautiful. She's sitting there reading a book, and she's constantly laughing while she's reading a book. So that was basically my entertainment. I'm not much of a reader. My entertainment was watching this girl read the book and watching everybody look at everybody else and winking and nodding. And Shambo would wink at me every day. But she's a good lady. I like Shambo. When you start the game, the very first, season 19, just start, everybody's like, you don't really know what to do. You literally introducing yourself to people that you've been seeing for weeks, right there. So you've been seeing these people, you ain't been able to talk to them, and you go eat when you're doing the interviews and you seeing them eat, and they make sure that nobody's talking. You have handlers, and they're always watching you. Nobody knows nobody. So everybody's freaking out. What do we do now? Like, I think a few people said that. That's when you see a lot of the people that's there to work, like as in work hard around camp. They start gathering stuff and working and working and working, like a labor type of work. And I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, I'm going to pick up this and that, but you better believe while I'm picking up this, as you can watch in the videos, picking up the bamboo, bringing it, I am starting to talk alliance right off the bat. I knew that you had to do it. Well, I thought that you had to do it as quick as possible. Because in my mind, if you didn't start an alliance right off the bat, then somebody else is going to get to that person. And if they get to them before you do, then that'd be their person, not yours. So I literally thought that's how it was going to go down. So that's why I was going so fast. I was talking to this person and this person, trying to get as many alliances as I possibly could to make it to the end. And in the meantime, you're learning everybody's personality. You're learning who you can and can't trust. I'm pretty good at judge a character. And that's how it all started. That's how, Samoa, there's great detail and gameplay and all that. But that's how I started my first season. Now, going into Heroes versus Villains, I've always said that I played one season just 2 times. I only went home for 10 days. Matter of fact, they were talking about flying my entire family to Samoa to give me my break there. They was talking about flying everybody there and where they could keep me there until Heroes versus Villains starts. And I found out that later. They didn't ask me, which I wouldn't have wanted that. I wanted to go home because you kind of want to go home, believe it or not, after you go through all that. And I always said that my gameplay is different than most because, and there's a reason I'm saying this, It's different than most because I play so hard mentally, and my brain is constantly moving and trying to figure this out and that out. So if you just go there and float along and don't do nothing and just lay there and just kind of ride somebody's coattails, then it's not near as stressful. It happened so fast, they had to find out if I would play for Heroes and Villains while I was playing Samoa. And since CBS didn't know who I was, because my season hasn't aired yet, they have to convince CBS that, because ultimately CBS makes the decision. Mark and them can bring it to them and they can say, I want this and this, and usually they do that. But ultimately CBS makes the decision who plays. They had to somehow ask me while I'm playing a game, and they had to do a tape. They had to do a sizzle reel so they can bring it to CBS so I could be on Heroes versus Villains. They asked me if I'd like to play an all-star season. We can't tell you what it's going to be, but it's going to be bringbacks and this and that. I thought it was going to be like I'd get a couple of months off. And I'm like, well, how long do I get home? Because that's the only thing I'm thinking at this point. They were like, well, you're lucky if you get 2 weeks. I'm like, are you serious? My heart dropped to my stomach. I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to do that. Like, yeah, I might look all tough, but man, that's a very physical and mental tough strain, mentally and physically on your body. How they came at me was like, because I kept saying I'm the best that ever played. I'm the best that ever played. I would talk about myself in third person. Yes, Russell Hantz, the best that ever played. They said, do you think you're the best that ever played? They knew what I was going to say. They're trying to play me. Of course, I think I'm the best that ever played. Would you like to prove it? Yes. Hell yes. They took me on top of this mountain. We did a little 3-4 minute clip of me, talking about who I am, and like a regular tape, like I'm sending it off for an audition. I did that, never heard nothing back from that tape or anything like that, but obviously CBS liked it, because next thing you know, 10 days later, there I am on an island again with a totally different group of people that actually knew how to play the game. It was harder because the people there were way better in playing and they knew what they were doing. Season 19, it was so easy, but I was to be so much in control like I was on season 19. I had to lose a little mental stability. I had to take my entire brain and keep it working to stay in control. The whole time I played season 19, including the merge, I was in control of that game. There was one little bitty incy-bincy tiny part where I wasn't in control, and that's before they voted out their own alliance. Before they voted out their guy. See, I don't even know his fucking name. When they did that, I knew that they made a huge mistake. With 4 people in my alliance, only 4, taking people down like I did, every name that I wrote down, every time, went home. There's a lot of things, you're not supposed to brag about things, right? There's one thing in life that I don't mind bragging about, and that's my first performance on Survivor. Some of the previous contestants asked me, do I think I'm the best player that ever played recently? And I said, I'll tell you what, season 19 was the best performance ever. Now, I guess it's a debatable being the best player ever because I didn't win. Even though the jury was extremely bitter, and that's the reason I didn't win. That's the only reason I didn't win. But it was by far the best performance in Survivor history. If you think that that's not a correct statement, then you can go ahead and tweet me at Russell Hantz and explain to me who is the best performer to ever play the game. Because there's none. You can't find any. You might say, what you going to say, Tony? Because Tony's game was my blueprint. I made that. I wrote that blueprint already. That was my blueprint. I did that. He just had a better juror. And I know I might be veering off to a bunch of different things. That's how I talk. And that's how this podcast is going to be. Sometimes I'll start thinking about one thing and then another thing pops up in my mind and I start talking about it. My first season, I thought I won. I went home. I played season Heroes versus Villains. I went home from that. I called my ex-wife at the time, my wife at the time, and I tell her, we just won $1 million. This was after Heroes vs. Villains because the first episode of Samoa airs when I get home from Heroes vs. Villains. While I'm in the airport, I think it was a Thursday. They used to air on Thursday. So I get in the airport Wednesday. If it's like tomorrow, Survivor starts. And she's like, Russell, you won't believe what's going on. I don't know nothing about editing or none of that. She's like, the commercials are all you. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, because I've been playing the game. I don't know nothing what's going on. She's like, it's like, Russell, they have one commercial that says, or you. No, it says, there's a new name for, let me get it right. There's a new name for evil. RUSSELL. That was literally a commercial. I didn't know none of that was going to happen. I didn't know they was going to edit the way they edited. I just went out there and played my heart out, you know. So when I talked to her on the phone, I said, Melanie, we just won $1 million. And she's so excited. I was excited. You know, it was I poured my heart and soul out, and I did it. You know, I poured my heart and soul out in this game. I did things that you don't do in real life. You know, I went out the comfort zone. I'm not that guy in real life. Give me a break. Yes, I'm an aggressive person. I have an aggressive personality. But I'm not going to burn your socks and hide the machete in real life. So she was excited. I come home. I'm like, yep, I dominated. I got this. And then all of a sudden, you know, she's all happy. She's going, I tell her she can have a certain amount of money, a lot of money. We're starting to look online for different things, new furniture, this and that. Was going to spend a lot on just vacation. And, you know, it's pretty sad when you think about it. Because I just knew I had it. And I'll tell you why. First, I'll tell you how I found out that I didn't win. I get a phone call from Shambo. And then all of a sudden she's like, you don't think you won, do you? What? Russell, you didn't win. How could I not win? How could you not win with that performance? I worked too hard. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I literally felt like a failure, actually, to my wife when I had to go back in there and said, I don't think I won. She was like shocked, like, because she's, asking questions like, well, why would you have thought you won, and what happened? And I'm telling her everything that happened. I dominated, and it just, it was a shock, because all my life I grew up as an athlete. Oh my goodness. What do you want? I'm in the middle of a podcast. Leave me alone. See what happens when you're trying to do something? Everybody's always bugging. One's asking questions. One do this and that. That wasn't my son or anything like that. I wouldn't have talked to him like that. Where was I? Me growing up as an athlete, I always did everything. I played all the sports. I ran track. I even played basketball, believe it or not. I was a powerlifter. I won the state and national championship in powerlifting. I was a good football player. Everything I did, I was good at. And guess what? When I won, when the score was 50-0, we got the trophy at the end. Guess what? When I dominated, when I had the best performance, guess what happened? I got a medal at the end of it. I got a trophy at the end of it. Because I won. I came first. And guess what happened when I lost? I went and shook their hands. That's what happened. When I lost, as an athlete, I went and shook their hands. Because that's what good people do. You know when you're beat. You're playing a game. Everybody says, oh, it's a game. It's a game. Oh, no. It's much more than a game. Much more than a game. Because if it was just a game, then when you wouldn't get your emotions caught up in it. You wouldn't be so bitter if it was just a game. But because it comes to another level. It comes to a totally different level that I never understood. And I do now. I get it now. It's not just a game. You know, you have to put real life involved. It's not a game. You have to go in like it's not, like you truly hurting people's feelings. If it was just a game, then why didn't you vote for me? Because I played the best game. But I hurt your feelings. And you're a baby. You're a pansy. You're a snowflake. And I guarantee you, most of them people, probably Democrats too, that didn't vote for me. They seem to get their feelings hurt a little bit more than a Republican. Just saying. Don't mean to hurt you little Democrats' feelings out there, but that's how it is. And usually when you lose a game, both teams get together and they shake hands. But that's not how this happens. This ain't just a game. And I lost because they got their feelings hurt. I don't even know how they got their feelings hurt, to tell you the truth. I have no clue how they got their feelings hurt. What did I do to hurt their feelings? When did I aggressively come at anybody in season 19? When? Never. I seen a thing that Laura did not long ago, and she says in it, yeah, when I got voted out, he was all clapping and laughing and all this. No, I wasn't. You know why I wasn't? Because I know I had to play a social game too. I never once was aggressive with anybody. The reason you, as viewers, see me having a quote-unquote bad social game is because you are watching the confessionals. And you get to see how aggressive I am in the confessionals. Well, guess what? Nobody else seen that. Only you get to see me be aggressive. But if you watch me carefully, Laura comes at me. She says she's 90% in control of this game. I'm 10. I don't say nothing. All I say is, well, I guess I'm going to have to win every challenge. Monica comes at me. Remember, on the beach? What do? Nope, not aggressive. They all come at me at tribal council. Not aggressive. Nobody knew I burnt their socks. Nobody knew that I poured out their waters and hid the machete and, knew my Katrina story was fake. Nobody knew that until after it was all over. When did my social game fail? They all liked me. That's why my Final Four, that's why Natalie White didn't switch. That's why her best option in that game was to flip with the girls. We only had 4 people in our alliance. Anybody on my team, best option was to flip. But guess why they didn't? Because they liked our crew so much, we was willing to go down with the ship. That should say a lot about who I really was and how my personality really was. The reason Jason didn't vote for me is because, which was a shame, he got his feelings hurt. He didn't vote for me because he liked me too much. Then he got his feelings hurt. It's like your best friend stabbing you in the back. You got to realize Jason went to the Final 5. Final 6, Final 5, one of them. I had 4 people in my alliance. 4. Jason's in the Final 5. I bring him as far as I can bring you. Look what I do when I play. I take my alliance to the end every time. Every time. Even when I got voted out early and the third time I played, I was not going to flip on Stephanie or Krista because that's not how I play. I'm loyal to my alliance. And that's a bad thing to be sometimes out there. But it works for me. I don't flip on my alliance. Like, look at this season. People like Sarah. She's flipping on every single person. She all her alliance. Every alliance she has. She stabbed them directly in the back. My final 4 was the final 3, people. My final 2, me and Parvati, was the final 3. Danielle was about to stab me in the back if you're thinking, because you're probably saying that out loud. Oh, you got rid of Danielle. No, that was coming. And she was trying to get rid of Parvati. They don't air none of that. But that's how it really was. She was coming at Parvati. She was like, now's the time. I go to Parvati. I tell her. And then bam. She's going to be coming at me. One of the best moves I've ever made in that entire game was at Tribal Council when I looked at Jerry. And I said, Danielle. Get rid of Danielle. That was one of my best moves I've ever made. Because if I would have let Danielle go back to camp, I was done for. Done. So, the social aspect. Heroes and villains, maybe. It started getting a little bit more aggressive. But my first one, season 19, man, I was aware of the social aspect. I was aware of that. And I was playing to that. That's why I'd like to have Laura on the show. Because I have a few questions I'd like to ask her. That would be a pretty good podcast. I just want to know where, when was my social game that bad? What did I do? No, it's because you're so butthurt you can't vote for the person that won. The person that just whipped your ass. The thing is, nobody's seen that kind of ass whipping before. Nobody. In the history of the game, it's never happened like that. I did things to embarrass them. It was a great move when I found that first idol and I got rid of Kelly. That was a perfect pick, even when I look back on it, because Kelly was Laura's partner. And I couldn't get Laura because she won the challenge. They just voted for me 8 times. Russell, this vote does not count. Russell, this vote does not count. Russell, this vote does not count. And then she says, he just stirred up a whole lot of shit, is what he did. Wait, what? You want me just to put my little tail between my legs and head off to Ponderosa, do you? I'm fighting for my life. I just made one of the biggest moves in Survivor history, and that's how my social game is bad. I never said nothing out loud. Never did anything. Never looked at her. None of that. That is when my social game, in her eyes, was terrible because I didn't go home like a good little boy like she wanted me to. So I just don't know. I'm just confused about all that. Anyway, this is my podcast, The Russell Hantz Show. This is what we got. And I'll be doing a podcast 2-3 times a week. If we start getting a lot of listeners, I'll be doing more. Hopefully I can give you a little bit of joy in your day. An hour out your day or so. You can listen to my beautiful voice talk amongst the radio. See, I always knew I had a radio voice. No. That might be my downfall. I want to talk about game changers. That's going to be on my next podcast. We're going to start having players and different people on the show. It's going to be about all types of different things. Current events, maybe. Whatever we want to talk about. I'm going to have Brandon on the show. I like to have some controversial things on the show. Whatever, This is it with this one. I hope you enjoyed. And download, baby. Talk to you next time. Later.